Today is March 1st, 2022. This is the Hannah City Village Council meeting. If everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May be seated. Oh, shouldn't have said. So we don't have any. Well, we have Cassandra. She's not a guest. Treasurer's online. Megan. She's not a guest. She's here for the Hannah City Park District. We know her too well.
No, me too.
That's a guess.
You can just leave it there. Oh, okay. I'm here.
So, Megan,
Can I get the floor first?
you get the floor first.
All right. Well, I think everybody here knows me, but just a quick introduction. Megan Welker. I'm a Park District board member. I've been a part of this community since 2008, but been part of the board for, it's been 11 years now. I'm here today for a specific reason, though. We are having trouble with the roof in our Park District building. It's the main roof over the gym. We're assuming that that part of the building was built in 1955 from the records that we're seeing. I mean, obviously, it's a very aged space. We've been making updates as we can, but that's a huge expense. Currently, it's covered with insulation. Most of you have been there. Yeah, it's like a white foam. It looks scary. A lot of people ask if it's asbestos. It's not. But when it falls to the floor, of course, people are concerned a little bit more. And it's starting to happen more often. As it rains or ice forms and creates barriers, we'll see heavier amounts of it falling on the gym floor. We could potentially fix those spots, but there's so many up there that are not currently even known. It's recommended that we get the entire thing replaced from the inside. So what that means is they'll currently go in, they'll scrape off all that existing insulation, and then recoat it. And then on top of that, they'll put a white fire-resistant coating on it. Currently, it is not even up to fire code per the fire marshal. So the daycare cannot even use it moving forward. We can still have activities in there as long as we're not getting poured on while we're having said activities. But this isn't a glamorous project. I wanted to come to you guys with economic development requests for a park, but we can't raise money for a park until we take care of some of these maintenance issues in the building. This is our first step at getting to a point where we can hold week-long camps during the summer and, have evening events in the spring when it's raining, not having to worry about accidents when water gets on the gym floor. So in front of you is a bid. Actually, it's not a bid. I shouldn't say that. It's an estimate. We cannot move forward with bids until we know this is a project we're going to be able to do. Once that happens, we will have to post it officially, get the right amount of bids as it is over $20,000, which is what our bylaws state. So I am asking you, I'm requesting from you to consider using economic development money up to $25,830 to help us with this. We currently have less than $5,000 in our future planning account, which was to be used for these type of improvements.
Are you putting a new roof on the gym then?
No.
Okay.
This coating will seal it from the inside.
Oh, okay.
It gets hard and will cause those leaks to be completely taken care of for now, up to 10 to 15 years, which will give us time to raise money for a new roof.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And hopefully someday those costs will go down a little bit.
Yeah.
That was going to be my next question.
Mm-hmm.
even though you're removing the insulation, what's going to keep it from leaking.
Yes, and they assured us that this would prevent it from leaking. So whatever the spray that they use, it actually goes into those cracks, all of those little pieces that are missing, and hardens almost like a concrete would in there. It expands, fills all the spaces. It's supposed to be a really good solution for us. It'll change the appearance of the gym, and hopefully will help us get to a point where we can have air conditioning, which is another future goal, so that we can do, more in the summer. Because currently, once 11:30 hits,
Yeah. That's pretty
you've
hot.
been up there. It turns into like a slip and slide because of the humidity.
Yeah.
So we're stuck with only mornings.
Gotcha.
So as Zach and I have talked about, I think we have $81,000, something like that, in the BDD account. And we've talked about strategically what do we want to do with the business development dollars. One of the things we talked about was doing things that were more community-based and less business-based, and then really promoting and having the park districts help us promote that. Hey, every dollar you spend in Hannah City, brings money into the business development district and provides us with the opportunity to do projects like that. And so I think today the economic development mindset is we give money to rich people to develop businesses, and which isn't true, but I think it would be nice if we could do things beyond just business related stuff. So we didn't have it on it for a vote tonight, so all we can do is talk about it tonight, and we can have some discussions and put it on the agenda for next time if we want. But that's kind of how we got to this place, was wanting to try to do something that was a little less business oriented, a little more community oriented.
That gym gets a lot of use. I mean,
It does.
and it would get more use. I mean, it's the most popular, even for people coming out of town with the basketball,
Yes.
campy runs and other players coming in and evening events,
Now, do we have a committee?
So, I mean,
Well, we've got what we
No,
call
looking
the
forward to
Community
it.
and Economic Development Council that we need. We've got anybody that was a taxing body within would have a representative. So the school and others would all have a representative on that, and then we'd have people from here. The only commitment we've made to those folks is if we were going to spend TIF dollars, that we would involve them in the process of understanding that. On the BDD side, it would be a courtesy, I guess, for telling them. But we made the commitment on TIF because the tax dollars was impacting them. So we don't necessarily have to get their approval. We've not even met yet. We were looking at maybe this summer being the first time we put something like that
you don't
together.
have any money to give away yet anyway. So
On the TIF side, we don't.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's not much.
Yeah, I mean, we just gave back
Yeah.
almost $6,000 to those taxing bodies.
Yeah.
So the only money that we could use would be BDD. I did talk with Gwen Crawford today, and she said that it's an expense that we could use business development district dollars for. We would just have to set up an intergovernmental agreement in order to make it happen. So it's allowable. Now, whether or not we want to do it, that's a separate question, I guess, for you guys. But
Yes. I mean, I know it is a lot of money. It is. Originally, I thought we were looking at 10 to 15,000. I mean, it's kind of a shock when we received this as well. But at this point, we're kind of strapped. We either need help or we need to start thinking of shutting certain things down. And I hate that.
It gets a lot of use, and you can't. If you push it off, you can't lose if you push it off, it's gonna get worse and worse and worse.
Well,
And then you're gonna have problems.
Yeah.
Because if you ruin the floor, then you're really up against it, because that's a crazy expensive, item.
It is. And that
hardwood
floor
floor,
is only, 14 years old, I believe?
Yeah, something like that. Which, exactly. It's,
So it's the only thing in that gym
yeah.
that's young.
And they
really don't want
thought the
it.
structure was fine. It just needs, that's not patched up. So,
Yes.
I mean, 25 is a lot, but if you lose it with as much use as it gets, then that would be a big loss.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never get that building back ever again.
No.
You'll never be able to build a gym from scratch in town. Nobody will ever come up with that money to do it from the ground up.
Getting a new roof later on wouldn't affect this project, like the integrity of whatever this stuff is going to spray on there.
Well, if we get a new roof in the future, we would have to tear all of that down. This would hopefully give us 10 to 15 years to get a new roof. To get the roof replaced, it's been about 4 years since we had an estimate, but we're looking at close to 100,000. Then who knows what that is now? And it's hard to raise those monies when you're not able to do the events you want to do in the gym. So we're kind of at a standstill. We make money by holding events, and we cancel events because we don't have the money to buy a roof. It's kind of a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, I wonder if that new roof would be 150 now, if it would be 50% more.
I know.
Probably.
I know.
When everything else is building wise, I mean, it probably would be.
Mm-hmm. And it's been a while since we had an official estimate, but I can't even imagine what that would look like for us.
Yeah.
And then, of course, with COVID shutdowns, our, raising money went from about $35,000, $40,000 a year down to about 17, as we could not have events for quite some time. So we're back rolling now, but we have some making up to do.
So what did you say you normally raise? How much?
About 35
A year?
to 40,000, yeah. But it's just like a ways and means of fundraising.
So I guess the question is, if the board wants me to, I can put this on the next meeting agenda to talk about and vote on if you want me to.
Yeah, put it on there. Or for me at least, put it on there, yeah.
I agree. I feel like this is just like an investment in the community, purely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And maybe you can hold some winter bags tournaments inside.
Yes. And you can pick your own partner.
No, no picking your own partner.
Draw when you come in the door.
Draw when you come in the door.
Oh, really?
That keeps from people from loading up their team.
I'm going to let him run the next one.
No kidding.
I
I'll be
think
there
his
with you.
feelings.
Yeah. Well, I know what you mean. There's some people that come and say, you're never going to beat them.
Yeah.
Ever. Yeah.
Okay, well, you're welcome to stay, but you don't have to. I put it on first, so you didn't have
Just
to.
take it off the agenda. If you don't.
I appreciate it. I'll probably stick around for a little bit longer.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Probably not the whole meeting, but for a little while.
Just I guess a
Thank
point
you,
of
guys.
order. Jonathan Nair
Enough
has
to.
joined.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
We don't have her until later, but she said she was just going to join now and ignore us until we got to the part of the discussion on the trail.
That's what I do too. So.
We know.
Huh? What? Yeah. Everybody should have a copy of the previous February 15, 2022 meeting minutes. From Caleb checked over these intensely.
I know Caleb did.
I'm just her previous meeting minutes. Your meeting's up. Make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Hey, be kind. They're the first minutes I've ever done.
I thought they were just as good as the other ones I read.
Actually, they look
Thanks. I did take this motion carried in the bold and did that on the planning minutes. I did like that.
I have a motion by Johnson,
Second.
second by Syak. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. And it brings us up to the treasurer's report. Cassandra?
You should all have a warrant list in front of you with all the bills that have come in the last 2 weeks. Nothing really out of the ordinary.
Did we get the water bill we missed processed?
The water bill from where?
I think last month, didn't we miss one? They got the bill in late or something.
We missed the one in January. We paid 2 in February.
I just wanted to confirm.
That's why there was the big amount left.
Okay.
Yes.
We did also, Cassandra and I went to the bank today, and which CD was that?
It was one of the Hannah City CDs. It was the 11,000.
I have my list in front of me. But we went ahead and instead of letting that roll over, we went ahead and cashed it out and put it in the general fund. It's it's making no interest right now. So we probably get more out of our checking account than we would with the CD.
Plus, as a reminder, as we go through the budget this year, we're going to look at where we're going to allocate that cash and try to build these longer term programs, and then we can make better decisions as to what we want to lock up in CDs or not.
I make a motion, we approve the treasurer's report and pay all outstanding debts.
Second.
Motion by Sidak, second by Pearson. Any further discussion? Roll call it. Sidak,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Motion carries. Let's see, skip him. Engineers report.
Brian, do I understand correctly, you'd like me to present it, but to vote on it later?
Yeah, I had it later under the streets for the vote, we can vote on it now if we want. I just thought you could explain it and go through it.
You'll recall last time we sought a little bit of guidance as we're dealing with elevated prices, labor and materials, trying to be realistic about what we expect to see when we go out for quotes and bids here this spring and summer. And asked for a little bit of guidance on, do we hold the scope that's in the 5-year plan or the cost that's in the 5-year plan? And your guidance was to hold the costs so that we can continue to feed money into the long-term project fund that you've been building. So again, with kudos, if you will, to Roger and Brian and Rod for helping prepare this 5-year road plan that we're kind of marching through here. This would be really year 2 of it. To present to you MFT program. What we do is we total up the costs for the project, then there's the engineering that goes on top, then you pass a resolution for 10% more of that to give you some flexibility, like we saw last year, should the bids come in high for any reason. So the resolution itself is for $92,000. The program is for $83,000, which is almost exactly what you had last year. Very, very, very close to this. The amount of dollars that you spent last year. Again, part of this is the additional Rebuild Illinois funds that you have. Part of it is traditional MFT. This is 2.5 times what you used to spend. Our programs in years past was 35, maybe 40 was a good year. This is 92. We're getting more done and squirreling away money for the long-term projects. So I think it's a pretty good balance of the guidance that you gave us last year. Specifically, we're looking at about $67,000 worth of sealing streets, and with the map that was passed around last time, and then a $10,000 allocation for completing sidewalk replacement. So that's where you get the 76, add 7 for engineering, get you to 83, 10% more. The ordinance would be for resolution for $92,000, 2022-23 MFT program.
And just as a reminder, we put $5,000 a month away for streets. And so the difference between, I think the income, the MFT and Rebuild Illinois income is like $67,000, something like that, estimated for next year. So the difference between that and this price will be spent out of the reserves that we're putting aside. So
right here. So if I could, I will just read up. Consider. And then all kinds of signatures and see what's interested in.
Yes.
Do we just want to vote now, or do you want to wait until we do the streets? I didn't know if there was a difference in when we report it and when we're supposed to vote or not. It has to be under the committee.
You can move it up if you want to vote now, or you can wait.
Yeah. Might as well, since we got it in hand. So,
Any questions? Anything I can answer?
We are a little ahead of the game this year, trying to see if we can get it out so we can get additional bids. Last year we only had 1 bid, and we were happy with the vendor, but if we can get some competition on the bids, that would be great.
Yeah, so this will, if approved, the next step will win the state for approval. They generally turn around within a month. And once they approve it, then we can go seek bids. So instead of doing that in June, and boy, in some years it's been as late as August, hopefully we can do that in April or early May this year.
Thank you. I was getting awfully close to that.
Brandon, what did you say? Part of it was something traditional. And some was rebuilt Illinois.
Yeah, MFT funds. The MFT is every time somebody buys gas, a chunk of that goes
Okay.
into the general MFT fund that gets allocated by your population, actually. And then there's the rebuild fund, which is a temporary thing. I think this is year 2 of 3.
It is,
Is that correct?
and we normally get 48,000 roughly for MFT a year, and 27 somewhere around there from the Rebuild Illinois in terms of revenue into the MFT.
And that chunk of change from MFT has gone up recently.
It'll be interesting if gas stays at $4 a gallon.
Yeah, no good.
You never know.
So, okay, everybody know what we're voting on? It'll be the 2022-23 MFT program.
Need a motion? Make a motion for the resolution of the MFT program at 92,000.
Second.
I have a motion by Weaver, second by Sidak. Any further discussion? Roll call at Pearson,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Sidak.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Good job.
Brandon, I don't see where I signed this.
You don't.
I do.
You sign these.
Brandon, what other than signing all the documents, what are the action items that we have to do?
For MFT?
Yeah.
Nothing. I'll sign the documents and then it goes
Give
to the
those to
state.
you, and you.
Yeah, we'll take it back with me tonight. And
think-
nothing else.
Tony gets on it.
Right,
These, I think, are the clerk usually sees
right.
those.
He was asking
Third
about
page, local public
local
agency official.
publication. See?
And then it looks like your signature below that, right?
Yeah, Joe. Yeah, he marked them where he wants them signed.
Okay, well, see,
Okay.
he's signing a bunch. I'm only signing the actual one that for the money, right? That's all I signed for.
You sign the yellows.
Right.
Those were for you, but yeah, it's one on each one of them, so there should be 5 copies.
Megan, in the way of background, we build a program.
Oh, I need to sign all 5.
That every road in this community will get redone.
Okay.
So it'll be
Every 50
resolution,
And so we've got kind of a
yeah,
perpetual
2022-03.
income stream that's helping us get that done. So
Brian, I don't have anything else in my engineer's report other than to participate or answer questions regarding the trail stuff when it occurs.
thank you.
Do you need all of these or anyone my copy?
What we like to do is then Joe will execute them and we'll send you a complete copy.
Okay.
We still sign too, so I will absolutely send you a complete packet of everything
That's
that's
fine.
signed. Yep.
That's fine. Thank you.
Anything else, Brandon? And you guys said you guys are going to hit the trail again tomorrow?
Yeah, I was gonna say I can participate in that discussion. I don't know if now is the time or
Let's wait till we get into
Yeah,
the business.
like yeah, there's stuff to say there.
Okay. We'll move along. Attorney's report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple things to report on. First, now it's about the time to start working on the appropriations ordinance. I'm sure Brian and Cassandra are all over that. Only other thing I've got is I spoke with the attorney for the new telecommunications retailer that's looking to come to town. I spoke with them about the franchise agreement. They seem to be on board with everything. They don't want to, at least at this time, they don't want to request any changes to the telecom franchise, which is good news. They understand why we like to enter into these. So moving forward, I think we'll be okay. And I think they want to move forward as quickly as possible. So I imagine next agenda for our next meeting, we can get this on there and sign it. It looks like they want to, at least their initial build is going to be to a specific customer and then
It's
sort
on
of
Con Road. Do you remember the address?
where they want to do their build.
Yeah.
No,
It was Con Road. I don't know. Is there a Wi-Fi company or something out there?
that would make sense.
Tower?
It's going to a cell tower.
Is that what that's what
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
what
that's
they're
what
doing.
about?
There's a bunch of fiber companies now. They're all around the state. They're running fiber to cell towers everywhere.
I'm surprised they didn't hit it mid-century.
To connect to theirs.
Yeah, they're right here.
What I understood from the phone call was they like to have their own switches on everything. They don't like to hook up to other telecom providers' cables. And it seems like this is going to be pretty low maintenance for them since they're only trying to do one build at this time and then possibly expand, but who knows when those expansions might come. So I think on their end, it was just, why not just put in our own cables and set up our own switches?
I think Mid-Century is running to some cell towers. Stratus is running to different. I mean, every fiber company out there is running to different towers.
Stratus, you could throw a run down from your office.
I know, exactly.
So that's a retail for.
A telecommunications retailer, yes. And that's really all I had in terms of updates.
Sheesh, you guys are making this too easy. Brandon's the only one making it hard.
Just give it a minute.
Optimist.
Finance.
Okay, so in front of you on the deck, you've got the, I apologize, it says December 2021. I should say January 2021.
Let's say.
It is me.
Okay, never mind.
So this is the fiscal year, month 9. So we've been through 3 quarters of the year. So we've got 3 months to go. If you look at then the first slide, January core funds. So always follow the center column down. So our actual income was $91,190. Our actual expenses were $131,512. So we lost $40,322 for the month. Before you get nervous, there were $63,000 worth of ARPA expenses in there. So if you remember way back, we got our first allocation for the recovery fund, dollars for $81,000. And we had that, we were carrying that. Now we've spent, we bought the water meters and we did the, spent some money on the lift station. So we spent $63,000 on those 2 things. So if you back out that $63,000, which we already had the income in from previous months, we were actually, $20,000 positive for the month of January. Second page, again, you can see those core funds are showing up in water and in sewer. Those expenses are showing up in there. We do have one adjustment that we have to make. When we brought the income in from ARPA, we put all of it underwater, so I need to move some of it to sewer. So some of the details in each of those accounts are going to change. But if you back out the ARPA funds, it was another good positive month. If you look at January MFT, we didn't have any new expenses, but we did have income of $45.58 for the month. So we had a positive month on the MFT account. Under TIF, we had that 5463 of expenses. If you remember right, the TIF is incremental tax, property tax income. In the agreement, what we wrote out is 80% of anything that's incremental on the residential property in the TIF fund gets put back to the original tax body. So we gave more money back to the school, we gave money back to the park district and so forth, and that's what that 5463 represents. It was recognized in the month of January. Under BDD, we had income of $11,047, which is normal. We had expenses of $13,500. That's us paying for the coffee can parking lot that they are leasing from us, and that we'll get half of that money back. Was the agreement that we had. That we would split the cost on the parking lot, and they would lease it from us. So that's what that money is.
So we are getting.
We haven't got that money back, but we will be getting half that money back. So that number will come down by $7,600. The next slide, then, if you look at year-to-date core funds. So again, if you follow the center column down, year-to-date we've got $1,023,000 in income, and we have expenses of $781,712. So year-to-date we are positive at $241,295, and we finally reconciled kind of all the ARPA money, or the majority of the ARPA money and so forth. So that's a pretty true number, that we're almost $250,000 to the good through the first 9 months of the year. So that's good news. If you look at the core funds January year to date, again, there'll be a change with sewer and water because we've got all the income from ARPA and water. Some of that's going to be moved to sewer to cover those expenses. So those 2 things will shake out a little bit and change next month. January year-to-date MFT, I believe we've got all the expenses in, so we shouldn't have any more. So this is what we were just talking about. We had income for the year of $51,124 between MFT and Rebuild Illinois. We've spent $87,533, so we overspent by $36,409, which we're pulling from the reserves of that $5,000 that we put away every month. So we're putting $60,000 a year roughly for street improvements. So we'll be using 36 of that to cover that additional cost out of the reserves. January year-to-date TIF. So you can see we had a negative month. I think our cash got down to about $200 in this account. So I checked with Gwen Crawford again. We're probably going to have to borrow from either general or BDD or somewhere. Tony and I talked today about perhaps borrowing from general. Cassandra and I are working from that. But basically what happens is until it gets built up, you can borrow from the other funds, and then you just keep a record of it, and then eventually you pay it back later, or you forgive it later, depending on what you want to do. But from a cash flow standpoint, we're going to have to seed TIF until it starts to generate additional income. That's a long game, because it's all basically incremental property tax dollars that go into there. So if property taxes aren't going up, then we're not getting additional dollars. Year-to-date BDD, again, we'll be getting coffee can reimbursement, but we're still $69,177 to the good. So add another $6,000 or $7,000 to that and get a truer number. So BDD's doing okay. And I just looked at the cash. We were at $81,000 in cash on BDD. If you look at the total cash summary, the next slide. So we ended last year at $1,316,000. We're as of January, that should be January, we're at $1,576,984. So we've got a positive variance of $260,725. So if you look at the income statement, we're $240 to the good. Our cash is a little stronger than that in $260, but that's probably just timing in terms of what's been reconciled. We were negative $60K for the month, but that was the COVID capital that we moved. So we moved ARP money from designated accounts into liquid accounts and then spent it. So if you look at our liquid cash stuff that's not allocated, we're $95,000 to the good year to date. And the designated earmark cash, we're $165,583 to the good year to date. So cash flow positive, nothing to worry about there. So summary, core funds showing $40K negative. It's actually $63K in that ARP COVID funds. So we were actually positive. We had no water bill, so we paid twice in February. So you'll see that next month. TIF funds was negative. That was the $5,400 that we paid back to tax district rebates of 80%. I put in here need to watch cash. We got bills in today, so the cash is going to go negative. So we're going to have to do a borrow. BDD funds was negative for $2K for the month, but we're going to be getting reimbursed on the coffee can expenses for the parking lot. And we still have that $11K in income still missing. We've received it, but it just wasn't booked. And so the BDD dollars will go up on the income side as well. And then we had the cash drop because we had the money from ARPA that we brought over, but we actually spent it as well. It was recognized in the month. Year to date, we're positive 241. Water is closer to 3K negative. You move $33,000 of the ARPA COVID money out and put it in sewer. And then we also didn't have the water bill. So it was showing positive by $42,000 or $3,000. It's actually negative by 3K. TIF, need to watch cash flow. I talked about that. BDD, 11K light on income, but we're reconciling that and we're going to get reimbursement from coffee can. And cash, I already talked about moving that around. So, all said and done through the first three quarters, 240 to the good, cash flow positive. A lot to like, I think.
Anything else?
Nope.
Mr. Johnson.
I don't have anything under finance.
I guess the only thing we did was, like I said, me and Sandra moved that $11,000 from that CD today into general fund. So liquidate.
Sounds good to me.
Police and planning.
Incident report from 2/13 to 2/26. There's 22 incident reports.
How many?
22.
Yeah.
Second item, resolution approving subdivision plat for Graceland subdivision. This requires a full board approval. It is it's a
We got the plats over here.
yeah, it's if anybody wants to see them.
It's basically just like one.
Yeah, it's a one lot subdivision. Somebody's breaking off a couple acres from, I think, a parent's property out on Pinkerton Road to build their own house. So no infrastructure being built, no roads, just one entrance coming out to Pinkerton. So which isn't even our road. They just fall within a mile and a half of us, so they have to be reviewed. And unfortunately, we don't have a minor subdivision process. We only have one subdivision process, so this gets the same scrutiny as if they were doing 500 lots and building 2 miles of roads. Because this is something that easily could have just been reviewed by staff internally and approved and signed without going through a month-long process. So
I was wondering when I saw this, I was like, "There's a new subdivision coming through."
Yeah, it's something we need to look at because this should have been approved in a day by us. Since it's not our road and they're not building any any infrastructure that's our responsibility, it should have been just basically reviewed like a regular plat of survey. We just don't have that capability in our code right now. So probably need to make like a lot of places call them minor and major subdivisions. If you're under so many lots, you're not building any roads, not building any infrastructure the village is going to take over. It can just be approved by staff. Doesn't have to go before planning and zoning board or any of that stuff. So
I think we actually have the names in the code for minor and major, don't we? We
do,
but we have the same process.
So we do have.
There is a minor subdivision.
Yeah, but the process to your
The process is the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
Caleb, you just need to show me where to sign.
You don't sign that one at all.
Oh.
We approve it. They're going to bring you a stack of probably 6 to 8 paper and 1 Mylar. You sign all of those.
Yeah,
Well,
We have to-
you have to, actually.
I
Down before.
Can you? These are for the file. What do we? If we approve this tonight, does we just file it? Does it have to go anywhere? Does it have to go to the county?
I feel like they're in charge
We
of
don't-
recording it.
Yeah. Okay. We just signed it. That's it.
It just goes for our record.
That's for filing. So that's
Okay.
the planning
Goes to the
commission.
township.
Would it go with this?
Yes. So then this is the planning commission stuff and the plats we have so far, and then if we approve the ordinance, then you just put that with it, or the resolution or whatever.
Yeah, it's a resolution. We don't do anything. We don't record anything. We don't file anything. Tony signs that plat and our involvement's done forever.
Okay.
Yeah. They'll go record the plat and that's it. So.
And planning did meet and went through it all.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, I guess I'll make a motion. We approve this resolution
220302.
that for approving this plat. So Tony can sign it for him and get them done.
Motion by Johnson, second by Sidak. Any further discussion?
What was that resolution number?
0302. Who's on? Who's
I
not?
don't think we need a roll call this one.
Oh, we don't?
I don't think so.
Well, we were on leave.
There we go. That makes it easier. All those in favor? You sign the resolution, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. Because we're not spending.
No. And then it was online.
And then you'll see last item, EMS is doing an expansion.
by the way, they changed their names. We just found out it's Ergonomic Partners is the name of the new company that bought EMS.
So Ergonomic Partners is adding on to the building. And after some back and forth, Brandon put things in overdrive and managed to get some stuff done under a ridiculous time schedule.
Thank you.
Because they were kind of back up against the wall. So he bailed everybody out in that regard.
Does everybody know where this is? Corner of what?
Second and Hannah, south east corner.
Right next to our garage there. They're going to go on the west side and the north side of the building and add on. So they needed some sort of basic site plan to make sure they were going to stay in the right of way and some minor drainage things. So,
and just in the way of the background, what these guys do is they build and program robots for manufacturing. So they just did all the boats you see sitting out there were done. They built the programming for the robots for
Bass Pro.
Bass Pro.
And some of the tractor stuff.
And they've got $3 million worth of new robots coming in 3 months, I think they said, which is why we had to get rolling. So they need the expansion in order to do that. And they've got the business is growing. They've got some possibilities of some other contracts, and if those things come in, they could be expanding. I guess it would be east of what you're looking at there, where our current
building is.
Where our current building is. So that whole property could wind up being Ergonomic Partners Manufacturing.
Is that in front of the Sportsman's Club?
Mm-hmm. That's just on the other side of the railroad track.
No, it wouldn't be the Sportsman's Club property.
No, not the property.
Oh, I
Is it
thought you
in
said
front
part of the. Oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah,
just in
yeah,
front
yeah,
of them.
yeah.
I don't think we have to vote anything on this. We just wanted you guys to know what was going on.
Yeah, they would take. Yeah, basically. Yeah,
That's exciting.
Agreement if they stayed in town.
Yeah.
We would let them go that direction.
them.
We'd sell them that builder. We need a bigger one anyway. So plus we money from selling that. Plus it would go from zero tax dollars to tax full, which would be great for the TIF. So because the increment would be gigantic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you take a $0 one, tax it fully.
You get
100%. Yeah, then the increment is the entire tax amount. Exactly. So it would, yeah, it would immediately interject it.
Okay, so
Yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of hoping they do. Because in the long run, it probably between selling that and
Johnson, anything else?
So I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pearson?
Nothing for sanitary sewer.
Okay. Water?
For water, I have information that was supposed to be provided last week, so I will provide it this week. Whenever you are ready. 15 total shutoffs for 3,036.67. 0 level pay. 4 foreclosures at 511.93, and approximate gallons sold 2,158,584.
So is that from January? If you said from last time, or
It would have been
For February.
Did you get all the numbers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Rod, buildings and ground?
I don't have anything for building and ground. And we've already approved the 2022 MFT program. That's all I got.
Okay. SIDAC, economic development?
Megan's pitch was my.
So Megan did a good job.
Thank you. Trail updated, including environmental proposal vote.
Hey, Johnnicky, are you there?
I am.
Yeah.
We can hear you now.
I can see you. Hello.
You want to give us an update on the contract with UP and the extension? Anything else?
Yes. Sure. So again, the contract with UP was signed back on February 16th. We did get it back, a fully signed copy of that from UP, and I forwarded to you guys. We also filed the motion for substitute NITU and an extension on February 22nd. We're awaiting IDNR's letter of support, which apparently is going to be filed tomorrow. I've had a series of emails and voicemails from IDNR. We're waiting for some response of some kind from Union Pacific, who I haven't heard from since we sent them the contract and they sent it back. I've been asking them for about 2 weeks now for that set of licenses, the easement documents and whatnot that we need to correlate with that 2-page spreadsheet that's attached with the contract. I have not heard back from them. Also, they need to file their response to the motion we filed in the STB, so that should happen soon. Other updates on the intergovernmental agreement. Farmington is provisionally in. I'm going to be setting up a meeting with Bill Streeter, who's their attorney, and somebody from Farmington, probably the mayor. And I'm going to recruit one of you guys to come with me to meet with them and talk through some of the details of the intergovernmental agreement. Happy happenstance, the attorney for Farmington is Bill Streeter, who also represents the Peoria Park District. So he has some sort of operational knowledge of how the trail runs. He was not involved with the Park District at the time they acquired the trail and developed it initially, but he does have some experience with it now. On the other hand, from the county, on the 23rd, we heard a negative response from the county on ongoing maintenance and liability responsibilities. I sent that on to you folks, and I think that is something that needs to be discussed very sooner rather than later, and where that leaves both Hannah City and Farmington. Farmington is also aware of the letter from the county. The only other open item I had on this list was for Farnsworth to see how the process was coming in kicking off the environmental report. And I think if Brandon's there, I'm sure he can speak to that.
Before we go there, Jonathan, what was Farmington's reaction, or did they have any when they found out Peoria County was opting out?
I think they're hoping that maybe that position will soften. I don't know if that's a realistic expectation or not at this point. They did see the letter and had time to process it before the attorney reached back out to me and said that they were interested in still having a meeting with us.
Okay. So for us, I guess what that means is I think Farmington's in conceptually. They want to know more specifics on dollars and what does it mean for liability and so forth. But so far that's been favorable. But we're probably going forward without Peoria County, at least in terms after the purchase, in terms of support financially for the basic maintenance and any liability coverage.
I think that's correct. And I will just tell you straight that I am very concerned about Hannah City and Farmington, which is even farther away from the eastern end of the line. Very concerned about you taking on this level of responsibility and obligation and liability going forward without the backing from the county.
So I guess we have to decide, is that a showstopper, yes or no? And we also got if the extension doesn't happen, that's probably a showstopper. And if we find anything environmentally, that would be a showstopper. So those would be the three things that could hurt us.
So on the extension, first the substitute need to and the extension, I know that Congressman LaHood has sent a letter to the STB in support of the project and in support of giving us time to complete the project. So that's a positive. Not having UP even answering calls is a little disconcerting. IDNR will be supportive. It's just hard to get them moving. Everybody's still working remotely, and it's difficult to get them heading in the right direction. But I do think that they'll be supportive within the next day or two. So I have hope for the substitute need to and the extension request. But you're right, that in the event that we didn't get the extension, that would probably terminate the project from a functional standpoint, especially given that Union Pacific is not bringing the documents that they need to bring us to sort of facilitate the due diligence that we were hoping to be moving forward on at this point. Also on the environmental, I would be interested to know if there's been any sort of initial findings on the database search. I know that Brandon had warned us not to really expect much for another couple of weeks, but it would be good to know.
Happy to, whenever you're ready. The effort that we had proposed to do, understanding that we've got to move quickly and we've got 25 miles of right of way to look at, if you will, really consists of four things. One is the database search, and these are vendors that exist that essentially compile all of the various government databases, and you'd be shocked at how many of them there are, and then map all those and show where would there be flags, where have there been reasons to suspect further investigation. So we ordered that, received all that report. We have done and will continue to do some interviews with some people who are familiar with it. Again, it's kind of difficult with a railroad and 25 miles and 150 years of history, but we've conducted a few and have some more to do there. We've collected some data, just looking at general places to find some data, and there we've had some success. Long story short, I was trying to build a map. Peoria GIS is great. It's great stuff. Here are all the parcels. It's good for making a map. And Fulton County. And so Fulton County, not so easy. Really ran into a roadblock, if you will, there. That there's nothing over there. Couldn't get a hold of anybody. Thought I'd call some friends over at Tri-County Regional Planning Commission. They know these things. And boy, have they been helpful.
Fulton County has a GIS.
Do they? Do you have a phone number?
Yeah, I've talked to the guy.
What Tri-County told me is when they tried to do it, they told them they were going to charge them for it and to come to the county board and present, and they would maybe waive the fee. We don't have time for that.
No, okay.
So exactly. So the guys at Tri-County, very helpful. I have not seen the grant application. Wow. They did an environmental screening. It was only for the purchase of the property, so it's a little bit different, but there's good information there. They also did an inventory of the bridges and culverts that are on there. There aren't very many, I should say bridges, major structures. They found 5 of them. There's some good photographic evidence here. There was a lot of good stuff. They sent me their GIS information today. I haven't had a chance to look at it. So Tri-County has provided some good data for us to check, confirm, include on what we have in here. Again, the environmental stuff was more of a sign-off, and the impacts of the project were purchase of property. There are no impacts to bats and butterflies and things like that, but it was helpful to have. So we did that work as well. And then, of course, the field work. And we want to get smart before we go out there and go out there guns blazing. And I'm glad that we did delay a little bit, because now I just got some of this information yesterday. So we will be out there starting tomorrow, maybe, see where this goes, to begin to do some of the field recon, and hope to do that, finish that up this week. Again, my intent was to present to you initial findings here in 2 weeks at your board meeting if this moves forward. We have not seen any red flags so far. A lot of the environmental database search, just as a fun incident, there's a Department of Defense site in Hannah City that is flagged. And one of the guys I'm working with, what's that? It's naval housing. It shows up and you see these big red dots on this thing, but as you dig into them, you realize that it's not much. There are a lot of registered fuel tanks along the corridor. Well, they're registered. There have to be. They show up on the database. There are some leaking storage tanks, but they've been addressed. Somewhat like we've been with the gas stations here in town, and they've done their work. But it shows up, and so we look at each one of those. We didn't see anything that said, big rail car derailment in 1974. Would we see that? Maybe not in the database search, but. So there were not anything there that's, I would say, deal killers that we saw. We continue to investigate, and we're going to carry that with us and look and see if there are any evidence when we stand next to the sites tomorrow and Thursday if we move forward. So I would say no deal killers notified, understood yet. Good information from Tri-County. I continue to look to see if there are some folks that might have some additional information with the interviews. But so far haven't seen any. And the database report we continue to study, but don't see. I did bring the master map if somebody wants to see it. It's a huge report, but you can see all the little dots that are on there. So progress, still on schedule to provide you what we would like to provide you should you still need it at the time we said we would do it.
Thank you. And it's funny because Fulton County GIS actually has it listed as Hannah City Rail to Trail.
Interesting.
And I sent you a link.
They changed that name like last year, I think. Year and a half ago.
Yeah, I haven't had much response, and just getting the GIS data, and Tri-County said, well, good luck. So I'm just running with what they've got.
Once they built it, they really haven't touched it much much since then. I know there's lots of property lines that have changed and they've looked the same way they did 3 years ago. I don't, it's not, they like Peoria County, like they can record this plat we just approved. Within 1 to 5 days, you will see the lines change information. I mean, it'll be right there. Yeah.
It does have some of the PIN numbers, so I sent you the link.
Okay, yeah, I've got. I think we've got the PIN numbers were in one of the documents that we have, but I was just trying to build a map. And Tri-County, I think they probably supplied me what I wanted here this afternoon. I just haven't had a chance to look at it.
Okay.
Johnny, questions, comments for Brandon?
Not for Brandon, no. I think it'll be very interesting to hear once they've done the on-site search to see if anything pops as even a potential, maintenance, repair sort of item. But it sounds like no major red flags at this point is good news.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think we're not going to see oil shooting out of the side of the embankment. What we're going to see is bridges and overgrown areas that require some maintenance and attention at some level.
Will you be looking at the issue in Trivola?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll tell you that, I'm sorry, Bill Streeter for Farmington, he had asked what the status was of the Farnsworth analysis. So thank you for the update, Brandon. I can kind of give him that update too.
It might be tomorrow afternoon, but you want something in writing?
You guys are frozen.
We are?
Oh, no, now we're good. We're good now. Looks better. Maybe I was frozen.
I don't know if you heard my question. I'll be out walking around probably tomorrow morning, but would a written update help tomorrow afternoon?
If it's convenient. If it isn't, I'm comfortable with what you've already provided, the database search and the initial historical review.
I'll find a way. Thank you.
I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but does the Peoria County opting out, is that a showstopper for us, or do we continue on and see if we get the extension and make that decision later?
Maybe we've already come far enough. I think we should try and see it through.
Yeah.
It doesn't excite me. I'll say that.
Yeah. And it's something that we don't have to hold precedent right now. We can, if we get the extension and that, and then we, weigh our options and talking with our attorneys that, if we feel that it's going to be too much of an obligation or too much of a factor for us to, take care of that property and be held accountable for it.
Yeah, I'm definitely fine with moving forward and getting some more information.
Yeah. So, and then that's something we can, Janet, if I'm right, if that's something we decide later that, hey, with them not wanting to take that responsibility, we can still pull out of the contract.
Absolutely.
So, Johnny, I'm just running a hypothetical here, but if we got to the point where we just said we just put up signs, stay off, don't use, to lower our liability from, let's say from the Met or the down in the west part of Peoria all the way to Taylor Road, and that's developed from Taylor Road to Farmington, and then do the same west of Farmington up in Fulton County, stay off, don't use. Does that make you feel more comfortable or no? And is it the development having to manage it after it's developed, or is it just the fact that we are now responsible for anything that happens on it?
It's really the latter that worries me the most. You don't have any obligation to develop it, so that's not the issue. It's really that question of owning property, actually, owning property 15 miles away from the city that you really have no way to monitor or keep track of. Anything could be happening out there, and it's troubling.
Okay.
So we definitely need to think about it a lot more.
The one thing we did need to do is we talked about it last time, and we gave Brandon the go-ahead. Obviously, he's doing the work, but we've got to ratify you got it in your packet, the $16,000 expenditure for the environmental study.
You do?
Should be this one.
Yeah.
It should be one that says Farnsworth on it. You
Yeah, it's stuck behind it.
Yeah. Sorry.
This is just something Tony signed.
Say it again. Oh yeah, I actually
Tony signed.
Brian actually signed it.
I actually
Oh,
signed
you
it and
signed
sent
it.
it back. Yes.
Oh, okay.
This copy doesn't have it, so.
So if you remember, we authorized, going forward, we authorized to have Brandon go ahead and start the work to go ahead and get the limited condition assessment done for the trail. We went ahead and authorized at the last meeting, so this is to ratify the $16,000 expenditures to Farms Work. Any questions? I guess.
I have a small comment. I think we had an out. We were assuming you would loan us 8 UTVs. It would be extra if we had to provide our own. I think we're not going to use any. I don't think at this time. I think the access would be a trouble. We're just going to walk those areas. So we had a little bit of it out there. 16, unless we need to bring our own UTVs, there won't be any of that. So that 16 it holds.
Okay. Thank you, Brandon. So, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Johnson, second by Weaver. Any further discussion on this? Weaver,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Sidak,
Yes.
Pearson,
Yes.
motion carries.
As far as the project as a whole, being what I'll say fairly new to the board, especially to this project, the only exposure I've had to it is like when Fred comes here and tells us things about it. I'm guessing it was presented to the board at some point as to the benefits and all the ideas that are going to go into it. Is that information that I can access somehow?
I don't know if we saw
I
any of
know
those
that
packets.
Farmington did not approve it initially, right? Like they weren't going to take on.
Because I'm just like thinking I'm hearing of, all the potential costs and all of the ifs and the dangers. I haven't heard any of the positives of
I don't know
why
that
to-
anybody that Fred's got all that, and he said he'd be here around 8, but he had another meeting.
Okay.
I don't know that I've seen anything that quantifies the economic development. It's all anecdotal, right? That says, well, more people will come to town because they'll bring the trail out, and the community will use it, and so that'll be.
And I'm fine with anecdotal if here's where it did in this area, here's where it did in that area, and stuff like that. But if we're going to be talking about some fairly high level risk, I'd like to know what
the theory is.
More
people will come to town because they can bring the trail out, especially bikers. The theory is based upon the trail in Peoria that you might have additional people who want to live here or development in terms of subdivision and those types of things. That seems like a stretch to me, at least initially, but maybe not. I don't know.
Nobody's going to throw a big subdivision next to it as soon as you do it. If you were in an area where maybe development was running rampant with a lot of subdivisions being built, you had a choice of buying this field or this field. This field was next to a next to the trail. You'd probably do that one. Maybe the Dunlap area when that was going crazy up there. 20 years ago, stuff along the trail might have developed faster if it was going. But it isn't like it's going to see an immediate huge kick out here. It'll be a slow burn, that's for sure, because this is just buying it. This isn't improving any part of it for any use even.
slow burn to even get it started.
Right. That is anecdotal. I mean, Fred can speak to it more if he shows up, but they said they have people that are committed that want to put, or have said they want to put money to it. But yeah, again, the harsh reality is we have never seen anybody that signed and said, I'm committing this much money to it for sure either. So
I made a note. I'll have Fred kind of come and speak to that a little bit and see what kind of documentation they had. But to my knowledge, nobody ever did a financial analysis that said we're going to have X amount of economic development because we'll have X amount of more people coming to town.
Because we can say it looks like we're going to have X amount of responsibility to
absolutely
right
to deal with all this stuff,
especially to the east.
On day one,
we
might not see anything for a while, which is okay. But day one, we're on the hook for everything.
Right, and that goes all the way down to the south end.
Yeah,
of Peoria.
Brandy, the grant application has a little bit of that. Of course it does. It's a great application. That's the greatest thing in the world, right? Yeah. But it has a little bit of that. And I don't know if you have that. I was surprised got it. I was impressed. Tri-County did a nice job. I mean, they were successful. That has a little bit of that. I don't know if that's something that can be spun around.
I've made a note. We'll circle back on. My personal opinion is, and if you guys maybe feel differently, but I think there will be some impact. I just think it'll be modest. I don't think it's going to be dramatic. I think the biggest benefit is going to be for the people who already live here. There's a place to get out, walk, take your kids, get a little exercise. Those.
I would love to have it. Honestly, I think it'd be cool, and I could see some benefits, but it's a lot of risk.
But financially, do you see yourself spending money somewhere along here when you take your kids out?
And the other thing to factor in, and I don't know how big a factor this is, but if we do own the whole thing, in theory, anybody along there can annex that touches it. Any property can annex.
Yeah, that's a nice little cake.
Yeah.
That's not even on the table. You're not going to annex something 15 miles away.
No.
I know you keep bringing it up, but
there are some
100%. I'd walk off the board before I went to 5 miles outside town.
But there are places along the trail now that are within a mile and a half that would annex.
Yeah, possibly. But yeah,
I'm one of them. I've got.
Yeah.
I know of a business that when I talked to them about it, I won't mention any names, they were like, that'd be great because then we wouldn't have to deal with Peoria County anymore.
Yeah.
And the simple fact is they've already got sewer, they've already got water and everything, so we wouldn't have any obligation to do anything like that or do any improvements. It's the simple fact is they wouldn't have to deal with Peoria County anymore.
Yeah.
Of course, then I'm sure that's not going to be popular, right?
No.
I mean, in theory, you could.
Do we have the ability to handle all the requests? Like if they do the requests or anything?
The only work that I can think of that it would drive is every time they needed a permit, they would be coming to us for permitting, and so that would be additional work. But
we need to do some research about how you annex off of a trail, but
that seems shady. And the whole thing to me, that's like kind of a non-starter.
But
it's not shady. It's creative.
Okay. Well, it does become property of the village. So you're saying Johnny, you think there could be legal challenges to that?
I wonder because it's you own the property, but is owning it through rail the same as being part of the village in the way that you would be contiguous for annexation purposes? I'm not speaking to that. I can't tell you one way or the other. It does sound a little creative.
Fair enough.
Way to soften that.
We need to look into that some more. I think Mike would need to check that out a little.
Great. I think Fred just showed up.
Okay. Give me a waiter.
It's up to you.
Well, I don't want to attack him as soon as he walks through the door.
So the next item up on the agenda would be Locus software upgrade. This would be taking us from our current version of the 7 to the 8. And Cassandra, speak to me if I'm wrong. They said they wouldn't be able to do that until like October.
They would not be able to start training until later in September to go live October, because they like to go live at the beginning of a quarter.
Does that include payroll?
Yes, payroll and utility billing.
So those are the two major benefits.
Well, I mean, it includes everything. It includes accounts payable, general ledger, payroll, utility billing, everything.
The meter reads everything.
Yes, everything.
So we're getting new functionality is what you're saying. It's not just an upgrade of existing functionality. We're getting
No, it's not. And it's also more cloud-based is what she said it would be. So I don't know if that makes a difference in functionality for us, but she said that there's a lot of glitches in the systems, and I've noticed them as I've been learning it. But everything is going to be easier to use, more functionality, fewer bugs, things like that.
Are we on the bleeding edge of the rollout, or have they already rolled it out to other places that are using it?
Well, we would be going live third quarter. I think they've got people live now.
This lets us incorporate more of our stuff and use Locus for.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and basically it just it's upgrading the software, getting it to the latest version for compatibility, and also to help fix all their bugs they've had in the past. So.
Yeah.
And it's $1,600.
Well, there are a few report modules that when you run them, they open up DOS screens, and you have to type
And that's
in your
bad.
wire in to get through them, and it's very interesting.
That's bad, Cassandra, you think?
Just a little.
So it's just $1,600 in training to get them now.
Right.
I'm convinced that was a great presentation. I'll make a motion.
Second. Wow. So a motion by Johnson, and a second by Weaver. To approve the upgrade to Locust from the 7L7 to the 8L8 version. And includes training for that and the setup. And of course, we can always purchase more training if we want to. Is there any questions? Roll call it. Johnson?
Yes.
Sidak?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.
Motion carries. And Brian has been working diligently. Brian worked with.
I got several quotes on basically the computers we've got they're crawling, they're outdated. We made some changes. So Lori had a laptop. Cassandra doesn't need it. So the laptop's going to become Roger's computer. And then, so we don't need to buy anything there. I'm not going to have a desktop anymore. I'm just going to work off my laptop. So my desktop goes away. It's slow as molasses as it is. So I don't remember how old those computers are, but
they're old. I did them, not my last 4-year term, but it was before I broke for 4 years. So they're probably 7-8 years old.
So we're looking at a new desktop for Jim, a new desktop for Cassandra, a new desktop for Tracy, monitors and cabling to support each of those things.
And mounts for those. They're going to be there are mini PCs are only about this big, and they'll actually have a mount where they actually just hook it back onto the monitors. That way they're not sitting on the desk, getting knocked off, getting dropped on the floor, anything like that.
And we got a quote from, I manage the quotes because he works for Pearl. So I got quotes from Dell, direct quotes from Dell, and then a quote from Pearl. And we looked at comparable equipment, and this was they were very similar, almost identical. This one was a little cheaper. So I'm recommending the Pearl quote. Part of what I'm thinking is if I take a step back and look at the bigger picture, we're sitting with $240,000 surplus so far year to date. So I think we have an opportunity here to get some things upgraded. And then as we roll into next year's budget, I'm going to try to figure out ways to, not that we don't want a surplus is good, but are we putting enough money away for water, sewer, and those types of things? And so I hope to tighten up next year's budget and have less of a surplus because we're putting more dollars away for capital projects longer term. But I don't want to miss an opportunity to upgrade some things that I think we need to upgrade in order to get us where we need to be moving forward. So.
Another great one. Make a motion, we accept this too.
Attaboy.
Second.
So motion by Johnson, second by Sidak. Any further discussion? Roll call it. Sidak?
Yes.
Pearson?
Yes.
Weaver?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, so we'd already talked about the trail. One of the things that came up, Fred, maybe you can give us some thoughts on. The question was asked when we did the grant and we did the initial study for the trail. What were highlights of the positives that were in the grant that said, hey, this is the strong argument for doing it, either economic development wise or what have you.
I think the positives, I think, are economic development.
Was that quantified in any way? Do you remember?
Just by looking at other trail projects, as you look, especially at the Rock Island Trail, if you look at the number of subdivisions that have grown up, backing up to the trail, you'll see that several of those newer subdivisions up in Dunlap were put there so that they would have access to the trail. That was one thing. And that's what they have found in other areas where trails have been established, is that your younger families are the ones who really like to use these trails. They're the ones building the newer homes, and they're the ones who like to have access to these trails. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect that came up because we became the lead agency on it is that the trail is actually owned by the Village of Hannah City. And so as we started our annexations, this will...
We had that, so just to give you some background, the reason they're laughing is we had that conversation, and John McKee brought up an interesting point, is owning the trail equivalent to owning, and so is it annexable? And maybe you've already done that research. Yes,
and I believe it is. Because of the access that where the trail comes through Hannah City, I think that then makes that whole trail available for annexation for the village. And so, that's another benefit that we weren't looking at when we first started this project, because Peoria County was actually the lead agency at that time. The other thing is just the community has been very supportive of this project from the very beginning. And, during my whole time as mayor and even since, there are a number of people in the community who are asking when this trail is going to be done so that they can use it. So it's something that the community is looking forward to. It just gives us another, and it dovetails in with the Park District so well in what they're trying to do at the Park District. And it's just another piece in that puzzle that will help the Park District and bring, our whole goal in a community our size. How do we keep younger families here? How do we keep them engaged? When I first took over as mayor, I think when we looked at the census, we were about 60 to 68% 60 or older in our community. And I think this recent census, if you look at that number is coming down. I think we're less than 50% at 60 and over now. So that means that there's younger families moving into our community. That's what we've been hoping for. When we did the Heritage Senior Homes, that was the goal, was to move the older people who have homes have them move into a smaller place where they don't have maintenance and have to take care of it, and open up those starter homes for young families.
Right.
Didn't quite work out that way. It's amazing what did happen. I think there's only been one person from the village who actually moved into the senior housing, but it brought people in whose families were in the area, so they wanted their relatives closer to them. So in that way, it served a purpose. Just was not what we had anticipated. And it's like this, we can project, we can hope that's what it'll do. We don't have any idea what it'll do. I keep coming back to the Rock Island Trail because it's something close. It's something that we've seen grow, and it took really 20 years for the Rock Island Trail to really get established. But if you go out on that Rock Island Trail now, there are people on that trail, at least from Peoria to Dunlap. There are people on that trail all of the time.
We see my office is outside the trail there, and there's not a time of day there is not somebody there. And believe it or not, during the day it stays busy with people.
And it brings people into your communities, and I see where running these 5Ks, these half marathons have been a big thing here the last several years. What's happening is these communities are backing off on them because it takes so much police presence and security presence to block off all these roads and everything like that. You got a 24-mile stretch right here. You could run a full marathon on this. 12 and a half, 13 and a half, 13.2 miles out, 13.2 miles back. You have very little security presence because it's a full stretch. You don't have to worry about traffic. You have a couple of intersections you got to watch out for, Cameron Lane and, Kansas City Glassford. You put one person there just to monitor the traffic. But you can run marathons on that, and that brings in lots of people from all over. So that's the advantages when this project first got started. I see those advantages are still there. It's not something that's going to happen in the next 5 years. Like I said, the Rock Island Trail, I think it took almost 20 years before you really got the use out of it and people started taking advantage of. But once they did, like Tony says, you see people on there all of the time.
Mike, your guys' office is right there off the trail.
Right,
so.
right. There are always people. And I used to live in Dunlap, right next to the trail, constantly, and people all over it.
I will say that it's a regional draw. I got contacted today by the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission. They've asked me to speak with their PUETS group, which is their transportation subcommittee for the region, wanting an update on the trail. And the people who are involved in that are wanting to know how they can help us with this. I've told them about the difficulties with maintaining it and the design and maintenance of it. And, so they want me to come and speak to them to see, is there a way some of these other communities can assist us? Because they look at it as a regional draw. This is something that is going to benefit the whole region. So that's the thing. When we first started this, and maybe we did it backwards, maybe we should have done more upfront looking at how we're going to pay for the maintenance and all of that. But this whole project was centered around, you got to get the trail first. You got to be able to purchase that trail before you can do anything else. If we don't get it purchased, it's a moot point. And, we thought we had it done in 2015, and then it fell through at that time. If we don't get it done, this is a lost opportunity forever. I mean, there's no way it's ever going to happen again.
Sure.
So that's just kind of my thoughts as I was working, especially with IDNR. George Belovex was an expert on trails. He helped several communities throughout the state with their trails. He understood trails. He understood the language and all of that. That was his advice. Focus on getting the trail, because if you don't, that's an opportunity that will be lost forever, and you'll never get it back. And so that's kind of what we did. We focused on getting the trail. As we wrote the intergovernmental agreement, it was all focused on the purchase of the trail, because we knew once we got the trail, these other things would fall into place. Now it has taken us so long that we've lost some of the backing that we had originally with Bellevue, with Fulton County. We've lost some of that backing, but I think once we get the trail, I think some of that backing is going to come back once they see what it does for our region.
Thank you. Did that help answer some of that?
Yeah.
I know it's a lot.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, we just hear all these problems and issues they could possibly bring up. So I was asking, have we been presented with the reason for it, basically? So that's what I was wanting to hear.
And I agree. I mean, once I start hearing about the contract with the UP and how they're putting all the onus on the village for anything along the trail. But, and Johnny, you can weigh in on this too, but as we talked with our expert out in Washington and that, there are other communities that have done the same thing. They've had to take on this jurisdictional responsibility. And there was only one, as I recall in our meetings with him, there was only one time where there was a major issue with they buried some tanker cars or something, and then the railroad ended up fessing up to it and ended up taking care of the problem. But, most of these other times, these places have not had any jurisdictional problems or any liability issues with them.
I don't know that we specifically put that question to Charles about like a percentage. He did talk about that one example where they found rail cars buried in the back 40 behind the trail. I would agree with Fred, though, that at least anecdotally, it seems as though there are lots of trails out there, and a lot of the time there aren't major issues. I'm also really not aware of another example where the sort of sole agencies are two small towns that are at one end of the trail of a 24-mile trail. I mean, it's a big project, and it's somewhat unusual in that way. With the county involved, it's sort of more of the normal situation where you have sort of a bigger municipal entity, governmental entity that has sort of more typical jurisdictional control over the area. I'm not aware of, and I haven't looked for, but I'm not aware of any other examples where you have a municipality that's 15 miles from the end of the trail that's taking on this sort of responsibility. That being said, we can ask around and see if there are some other examples of something more like our situation.
Our situation is definitely unique because we are kind of the sponsor of this trail. And like I said, the only reason that happened was because of Peoria County was the original sponsor, and when they ended up giving the grant money back at that time, They just didn't want to go through the headaches of trying it again, and that's why Hannah City ended up taking it over. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Fred, do you know why Peoria County's opting out now?
I think, yeah, I don't. I was a little, I think it all comes down to budgeting issues. Peoria County struggles with their budget. They've got a couple of projects that are taking a lot of money out of their budget that they're not seeing any, the nursing home, they ended up having to shut that down because they were losing millions of dollars a year on it, So I think it's more of a budgeting issue for them. What's interesting to me, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but they're really banking on this trail being purchased, and they're already looking at doing a feasibility study to connect our trail with the Rock Island Trail and with the Wildlife Prairie Park. They have applied for a grant to do that. So that's why I was kind of surprised when they backed out of this completely, because they've applied for a grant to do a feasibility study to hook up the Hannah City Trail with Wildlife Prairie Park and with the Rock Island Trail.
Or are they wasting their money on the grant application if they're risking killing it?
Well, yeah, and it's been put on hold right now, waiting until this board makes a decision. But they haven't spent the money yet. But it's out there. They're ready to pull the plug on it as soon as the trail is purchased, basically.
Yeah, I saw that. That was a few months ago, I think, in the Tri-County newsletter.
Right.
Johnny, this isn't maybe an impossible question, but any idea the timing of knowing about the extension?
Well, I mean, before March 30th, I suppose.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Frankly, I don't know. With the way that the STB works, I can't even guarantee you that. We asked them to frankly make a ruling on our substitute NITU by today. Obviously, that didn't happen. I would hope in the next couple of weeks. NARPO obviously almost did us a favor by responding immediately. That was the one entity that we were concerned would protest, and of course they did. And they filed something the same day that we filed our motion, just opposing it, sort of just a one-page, typewritten little response. And it was fine. It was what we anticipated they'd say. So I don't know that the STB is necessarily going to give them the 20 days to respond, since they've done so already. So there's nothing stopping the STB from ruling on this, other than the fact that IDNR is still dragging their feet. And Fred, you weren't here earlier. Giovanna, the attorney, Giovanna Ackerman, says that she's hoping to get it filed tomorrow, the support or concurrence. And then Union Pacific has kind of gone silent on me. So if you want to poke them too, Fred, that wouldn't hurt.
Do you have a copy of the letter that they've prepared? Have you seen that?
No. Giovanna and I have been leaving emails and messages for each other. And just today around 5 o'clock, she left a message saying, call me tomorrow and I'll read you the letter. So hopefully we'll know soon. I think IDNR might, just to be technical about it, might, instead of asking or supporting a substitute NITU, but ask for an ancillary or additional NITU, rather than us subbing in completely. I don't know why it makes a difference, and I don't think it'll make a difference to the STB, since we're the ones with the agreement with UP, but
all right.
Either way, it'll be supportive.
I'll send you this letter. I've got a letter that's dated February 25th to the STB from IDNR. So let me send this to you. But yeah, that's basically, they're in support of it. They're asking for the fee to be waived, and they're requesting the extension, but they're wanting also to be a part of it too. So
This is IDNR two STB.
yes, this letter is from the IDNR to the STB.
Yeah,
So-
no, that's not been filed. It wasn't approved yet, but yeah, they have not actually filed it, as far as I can tell from the records and what the attorney said yesterday or today. So, but yes, that reflects her intentions as she's been repeating for the last several weeks and hasn't managed to get approval. But and then Union Pacific obviously approved the motion before we filed it, but haven't actually responded and filed an official support.
Okay.
And when does Farmington meet next?
They will meet the 14th, the Monday before we do. They meet the first and third Mondays of the month.
I think the next step with them is for Johnnicky and one of us to meet with their attorney.
Oh, that's right. Yep, and that could be later this week.
And I think,
I'll be in touch with Brian to get it scheduled with someone.
how much do they have to budget every year for this?
That's our question.
And like I said, I think, I really think, because we have established this 501c3, and if we can get a commission established, which I think we, I really think that there will be donations coming in to help us with that. I think, I know, when I was mayor, we set aside $1,000 a month to save for this project. I think if we just kept doing that, I think that would be, if Farmington would do that, that'd give us $20,000 a year. That would give us kind of the seed money that we would need just to do the general maintenance of the trail and keep the signage there and make sure that it's different areas that are taken care of. And then this other money that comes in from donations will take care of having to fix a bridge or something of that nature.
Okay. Anything else? Any more questions?
Do you know how much organizations donate to the other trails? Is it a constant, ongoing thing? Like the Rock Island Trail, do they run off of donations on a yearly basis?
The Rock Island Trail is a little different because it is a state-owned trail, but there was a group that did maintenance. It was called Friends of the Rock Island Trail. Matter of fact, that's how we kind of established this 501c3. They have merged with a group called By Peoria, and they already had a 501c3. So we changed the name of the Friends of the Rock Island Trail to the Buildham the City Trail. We have not publicized that. We have not sought any donations, but donations have already started coming in on that because the word got out there among the groups of the By Peoria and the trail advocates. There are other trails that are going in. There's one over in the East Peoria area that they're looking at establishing a trail along the river there. There's another trail trying to be established from Morton, and there is a regional plan to connect all of these trail systems together. If you look at the Bloomington Normal area with the Constitution Trail, I don't know if you're familiar with that at all, but it's a very similar project that they've done. And yeah, those towns are bigger, but they both contribute to the upkeep of that Constitution Trail.
Any more questions? Okay. Thank you, Fred, for coming. Thank you, Johnny, for being here this evening. Thank you, Cassandra. for dialing in. Our next meeting will be March 15th, 2022. I am having a procedure that day. I plan on being here, but if I'm not, do I need to post a
Need to name.
a pro tem?
Yeah, I need to name a pro tem. I can't remember off the top of my head what that process was.
How many days? Do you remember how many days ahead you have to do that?
Just do it before you post your
Okay.
agenda.
Okay. We didn't have any other correspondence. Brian, did you have anything else? Nope. Next meeting is March 15th, 2022. Thank you, everybody. Meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Night.